But first, it's President Trump's big night as he enters the congressional lion's den looking for Republican support for his budget agenda. We'll have our eyes on the speech in a moment. But let's bring in a familiar face now on tour in Washington, D.C., looking for business opportunities. Alberta's premier is the first to blitz the U.S. Capitol after Justin Trudeau's summit with Donald Trump. Rachel Notley has been meeting congressional leaders the last 2 days, and she joins us from the Canadian Embassy. Premier, have you noticed a bit of a sea change in Washington since your last mission when Obama was in charge?
Well, I think it's fair to say that there's probably a little bit more uncertainty around the city these days. People are still trying to get a sense of where things are going. I have not been here immediately after administration change, so I have nothing to compare it to. But you know, we've still been able to meet with a lot of congressional leaders who are very committed to ensuring that they maintain strong relations with Canada.
Okay, so you aren't picking up that protectionist sound when you're having these discussions. You don't feel that the walls are going up, at least to trade with Canada.
Certainly that's not been the impression that I've gotten from the congressional folks that I've been meeting with thus far. They seem pretty open to our message. I mean, I've been saying, listen, our government is about jobs, and we're about protecting jobs and creating more jobs. And, you know, like most elected representatives, that's something that they're committed to as well. And they understand the very connected relationship between Canada and the United States, and the fact that that we're very integrated, and that has developed over time, and that it's not something that can simply be disentangled very, very easily. Doesn't mean that the answers are all complete, but it is really important to make the case to them about how this matters to them as well as to us, and certainly people are willing to listen to us in that regard.
I know you sought opinion from Alberta business leaders when you were sort of setting the agenda for this trip. I mean, what was the ask? What did you hope to tell them that they might not have already heard on your previous missions there?
Well, I think really in this case it was just about being able to say, listen, it's not as simple as simply, you know, Canada shipping one type of unfinished product across the border that somehow competes with American products, and that by somehow limiting that, you're going to create jobs in the United States. Rather, what's happening is, you know, there's very complex and, as I've said before, integrated supply chains that go back and forth across the border more than once. And that process is connected to good mortgage-paying jobs on both sides of the border. And so it's not as simple to simply disconnect it. Obviously, I also talked about Alberta's energy industry and the fact that we contribute about 30% of the oil that the U.S. imports right now. And that as a result, we're a key part of any energy security formula, as well as a key part of any process that contributes to competitive manufacturing down here. And so I've been able to make that case as well. And so, as I say, it's really just about making the case, asking people to think about the benefits of these relationships and to think about the value of the important trade relationships that we have in place.
And that's it, isn't it? I mean, a new president, a new Congress, in some cases with new membership, it's more educational than anything else, isn't it?
Well, you know, I think education does play a key role. I mean, people here are very positively disposed to Canada, but it doesn't really mean that we're front and center in their deliberations every day, or in fact, many or most days. And so, as a result of that, it's really important for us to re-emphasize the value that we have to them, quite frankly, and so that's what this trip gives me an opportunity to do, and we'll keep doing it. We'll be doing it at the state level as well, and I'm sure other provinces will be down here as well. And it's just really part of this larger integrated approach that Canadian provinces are taking, and along with the federal government, along with industry, to make sure that our case is well made.
I know when you were down there last time, it was maybe the big chill in a way, because you were trying to, you know, push the Keystone XL pipeline a little bit harder against an Obama administration that said, Are you pushing against an open door in Congress now when it comes to rounding up support for Keystone XL?
I think that there's a great deal of support for Keystone here, and so we are cautiously optimistic on that. And really, what we're talking about here now is, what are people thinking about tax reform, border taxes, things like that. How do they see us moving forward in terms of keeping the border open between the two countries, trying to avoid various strategies that result in a thickened border, which actually costs money and cost jobs on both sides of the border. And so just talking about those issues and why it's important, again, not only to Alberta, but to people on both sides of the border, all of whom need to see their jobs maintained.
One thing that came out yesterday, and it's federal Conservatives, so I don't expect you to comment too much about their plan for an Alberta job strategy, and they wanted to end carbon pricing and reduce small business taxes, but they're also calling for more federal help for Alberta. I just look at the Conference Board projections, and your province is going to lead the country in economic growth this year. I mean, do Albertans need special federal assistance now?
Well, I mean, we're certainly cautiously optimistic about some of those projections, but you have to remember that growth is coming as after a significant drop. So with that growth, we're just sort of hoping to get back to where we were 2 or 3 years ago. So we need to actually do that for some time in order to get back to a position which is, relatively close to where we were before. So if you've taken 3 steps back, 2 steps forward is positive, but you're still not where you started. And so that's really the context within which we have to look at it. Green shoots, the beginning of some positive steps forward, but we do need still support because we need to be able to diversify our economy, and we need the support to bring back those jobs that matter to so many Albertans.
And final question, I guess, is Prime Minister Trudeau's in Calgary tomorrow. Have you got someone down there with a big ask for him while he's in town?
Well, we've been having some good conversations with them over the last few weeks, and we hope to have some more. We have some different ideas about how we can work together to bring more jobs to Alberta, to support the families who've been going through some really tough times over the last 2 or 3 years, and a lot of insecurity. And so both governments need to come to the table in that respect, and we'll continue those conversations with the federal government.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Premier Notley, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.